Good evening, dear travellers, and welcome back to Snug as a Bug. Tonight, we embark on a journey through the hallowed halls and shadowed chambers of England's most mysterious castles. Each of these tales is woven with ancient secrets and whispered legends that linger through the ages. Tonight, we begin with the Ghostly Lady of Windsor, where a tale of forgotten love and a sorrow-bound spirit beckons us to uncover truths buried deep within the castle's history. From there, our journey takes us to the Secret of Bran Castle, where hidden relics and ancient family secrets lie intertwined within the shadowy halls of Transylvania. Next, we enter the realm of the Phantom Knights of Dover, spectral guardians who silently protect a long-lost treasure buried within the castle walls, keeping an eternal vigil against any who might disturb their watch. Our path then leads us to the hidden chamber of Warwick Castle, a secluded room sealed from prying eyes for centuries, concealing a powerful relic that countless seekers have pursued, but none have claimed. Finally, we cross the English Channel to the lost treasure of Château Gaillard, where the echoes of Richard the Lionheart linger, safeguarding a relic of wisdom hidden within the fortress walls. Let each story be your guide into realms of mystery, love, and devotion. Allow yourself to sink into the comfort of your bed, the day's weight melting away as you settle into peaceful calm. Take a deep breath in and release any lingering tension with a slow, soothing exhale. You are safe here, relaxed, and ready to explore these legendary tales. Before we begin, gently close your eyes, letting your body sink further into your bed, feeling every inch supported and at ease. Allow your breathing to find its natural rhythm, taking in a long, deep inhale and releasing it softly, letting go of any cares. With each breath, feel yourself drifting deeper into tranquility, your mind growing quieter, and your heart slowing to a peaceful beat. Imagine now that you are walking through the soft mists of an early evening. Around you, the stone walls of Windsor Castle rise majestically, their time-worn surfaces shrouded in ivy and memories. The air is cool and laced with a faint scent of rain and moss, carrying whispers of those who walked here centuries ago. As you step forward, the gentle light of the setting sun bathes the castle in a warm amber glow, casting long shadows that stretch across the stone floor. The quiet is profound, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves and the soft call of distant owls. You walk further into the castle grounds, passing towering archways and grand corridors, each cloaked in an air of mystery. The stones beneath your feet seem to hum with stories, as if every crevice and corner holds a memory waiting to be discovered. Feel yourself guided through this ancient place as if the spirit of each tale beckons you closer, inviting you to step beyond time and space. In this serene silence, you are more than a visitor. You are part of these halls, part of the endless history that lives on in the stillness. Allow yourself to be drawn deeper into the heart of these stories, where the legends await, ready to carry you into a peaceful, restful sleep. Let go and let the magic of these ancient walls embrace you, drifting ever deeper into relaxation and into dreams of mystery and wonder. The Ghostly Lady of Windsor. Chapter 1. The Silent Presence. The air in Windsor Castle hung thick with the scent of old stone and a hint of damp moss, as if the very walls breathed with secrets. The flickering torchlight barely illuminated the ancient corridors, casting long shadows that danced on the walls as Ilara followed the castle steward through the twisting halls. "Nearly there, Miss Ilara," said the steward, his voice a soft rumble that echoed faintly off the cold stone. His lantern cast a small, warm glow, and the frail old man seemed almost a part of the castle himself, as if he had lived within these walls for centuries. "I appreciate you showing me the way," Ilara replied, pulling her woolen cloak tighter around her shoulders. She glanced around, feeling the weight of centuries pressing upon her. The castle was both grand and intimidating, with tapestries hanging from the walls depicting noble battles and feasts long past. There was an ancient beauty here, a sense of untold stories just waiting to be uncovered. "It's rare we have scholars staying overnight," the steward added, glancing over his shoulder with a slight smile. "Not everyone has the courage, you see." Ilara smiled back, though her stomach twisted with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. "I've read much about Windsor, but being here, it feels different, alive somehow." "Ah," murmured the steward, his eyes twinkling with a hint of mischief. "Alive indeed. Windsor is a place of old souls, and perhaps some who haven't quite left yet." A shiver passed through her, but she maintained her composure. "You mean the legends?" The steward nodded, his voice dropping to a whisper. "This castle holds many secrets, Miss Ilara. Some say the spirit of Lady Evelyn roams these halls, a beautiful figure with a mournful face. They say she appears to those with curious minds, those who listen closely." Ilara's heartbeat quickened. Lady Evelyn, a name she had encountered in her research but dismissed as a mere castle tale. According to legend, Evelyn had disappeared one winter's night centuries ago, leaving nothing behind but whispers of forbidden love and betrayal. The steward led her to a tall, heavy door and pushed it open, revealing a small chamber. The room was cold, with stone walls and a single window overlooking the courtyard. A large fireplace sat on one side, though its warmth was minimal, and the room seemed shrouded in an inexplicable chill. "Well then," the steward said, setting the lantern on a small table, "this is where you'll be staying. Should you need anything, you'll find me down the hall. Good night, Miss Ilara. And don't let the shadows trouble you." Ilara laughed nervously. "Thank you, and I'll do my best." With a nod, the steward shuffled away, his footsteps fading down the corridor until she was alone. She closed the door and let out a slow breath, listening to the silence that settled around her like a heavy blanket. Ilara unpacked her satchel, pulling out her notebook and a stack of old letters she had obtained during her research. She sat by the small table, flipping through the yellowed pages, her fingers trembling with excitement. Among the letters, she found accounts of Lady Evelyn, her beauty, her grace, her tragic love story. One letter in particular caught her eye. "To the one who finds this letter," it read, "know that I loved deeply and lost greatly. They will tell you my fate was sealed, but I say it was not. I am bound by chains that cannot be broken, unless by the hands of one who understands." A chill ran down her spine as she read the words. She looked up, gazing at the cold stone walls around her, wondering if the very woman who wrote these words still lingered within these walls. A sudden gust blew through the room, extinguishing the flame of the lantern. Darkness closed in, and the temperature dropped sharply. Ilara felt her heart pound as she fumbled to relight the candle, but her hands were shaking. "Steady," she whispered to herself. "It's only the wind." But as she struck the match, she caught sight of something in the corner of the room. A shadow. No, a figure. Ilara gasped, dropping the match. Standing near the fireplace, half hidden in shadow, was a woman dressed in a flowing gown of ghostly white. Her face was pale, her eyes large and sorrowful, as if carrying the weight of ages. "Who are you?" Ilara managed, her voice a mere whisper. The figure did not respond, but stepped forward, her footsteps silent. As she approached, the faint scent of roses filled the room, a perfume so delicate and haunting that Ilara felt tears prick her eyes. "Ilara!" The voice was soft, like the rustling of silk, yet it echoed in the silence. "You must listen. Listen and understand." Ilara's heart thudded in her chest, yet she found herself unable to look away. "Are you Lady Evelyn?" The ghostly woman nodded, her sorrowful gaze never leaving Ilara's. "I am she who wanders, bound to this place by love betrayed, and secrets untold." Ilara swallowed, her throat dry. "What secrets? What happened to you?" Lady Evelyn reached out, and though her hand was insubstantial as mist, Ilara felt a chill wash over her, as if 1,000 unspoken words had passed between them. "They buried the truth, and so I am here, waiting until the story is heard," Evelyn whispered, her voice fading like a breeze slipping through the room. "Do not forget me, Ilara. Do not let my story vanish in silence." And with that, she faded, her form dissolving into the shadows, leaving behind only the faintest scent of roses. Ilara sat frozen, her mind racing with questions, her heart beating wildly. "Wait!" she called, her voice trembling. "How can I help you?" But there was no answer, only the echo of her own voice and the silence that followed. Chapter 2. Whispers of the Past. The morning sun streamed through the narrow window of Ilara's chamber, but the warmth did little to shake the chill that had settled in her bones. Her thoughts were a whirl of questions, each one returning to the vision she had seen the night before. She sat at the small table by the window, nibbling absently at a slice of bread, the image of Lady Evelyn's sorrowful face imprinted in her mind. Who was the lady's forbidden love? What had happened to her to bind her spirit here, centuries later? Her fingers brushed over the faded ink of Lady Evelyn's letter. "I am bound by chains that cannot be broken, unless by the hands of one who understands." The door creaked open, and the steward from the night before stepped inside, bearing a fresh pot of tea. "Good morning, Miss Ilara," he said, his tone polite, but his eyes curious. "You seem troubled." Ilara hesitated, wondering if she dared confide in him. "Tell me," she said slowly, "do you believe the stories of Lady Evelyn? Do you believe her spirit still walks these halls?" The steward's face remained impassive, but his hand stilled for a brief moment. "Windsor holds many mysteries, some we choose to ignore. The lady is a tale oft whispered, but not without reason." Ilara leaned forward, her curiosity overcoming her caution. Did she really love someone she could not have? "I found a letter. It spoke of betrayal, of chains that bind her still." The steward's eyes darkened, and he set the pot down carefully. "There are stories, Miss Ilara. Stories of a forbidden love between Lady Evelyn and a nobleman, a man her father forbade her from seeing. Her heart was promised to another, but her soul, it belonged to him." "What happened to him?" Ilara pressed, her heart quickening. The steward lowered his voice, as if wary of unseen listeners. He was banished, exiled from court. They say he was falsely accused of treason, a charge Lady Evelyn's father fabricated. She was to be wed to another within the week, but on the eve of her wedding, she vanished. Ilara's breath caught. And no one saw her again? Some say she ran to join him, others claim she took her own life. But the truth, it remains lost within these walls. He gave her a solemn look. It's not a tale for the faint of heart, Miss Ilara. Perhaps it's best left undisturbed. But Ilara knew she couldn't leave it be. I must know, she said, her voice firm. Lady Evelyn appeared to me. She spoke of secrets buried, a truth that must be heard. The steward's expression softened, a flicker of pity in his eyes. Then perhaps you should speak with Father Callum, the chapel priest. He may know more of her fate, if you're willing to risk it. Ilara nodded, determined. Thank you. I'll seek him out. Chapter 3. The Priest's Confession. The chapel was dimly lit, the scent of incense thick in the air as Ilara entered. Father Callum, an elderly man with a frail figure but sharp, perceptive eyes, greeted her. Good day, my child, he said, his voice soft but steady. What brings you to Windsor's chapel on such a day? Ilara took a breath, steadying herself. I'm here to learn of Lady Evelyn. I've seen her, or her spirit, I believe. She spoke of secrets, of chains binding her to this place. Father Callum's eyes narrowed, and he crossed himself. Lady Evelyn, a soul who knew more sorrow than joy. I was but a young priest when her tale first crossed my ears. Tell me what happened, Ilara urged. I believe her spirit can find peace if I understand her story. The priest hesitated before gesturing to a pew. Sit, and I will tell you what I know. Ilara sat beside him, her gaze locked on his face. Lady Evelyn loved a knight named Thomas, a brave but humble man, noble in heart, though not by birth. Father Callum began, his voice laced with sorrow. Her father, Lord Hawthorne, was a man of ambition. He could not accept his daughter's choice, and so he conspired to ruin Thomas. Ilara listened, her pulse quickening. On the night before her wedding to a lord of her father's choosing, Evelyn slipped from the castle, Father Callum continued. But before she could reach Thomas, her father's guards intercepted her. He ordered her confined to her chambers, watched day and night. But on the third night, she vanished. The priest's hands trembled as he clasped them together. Some say she was murdered to keep the scandal hidden. Others say she escaped, but her fate remained unknown. Ilara swallowed, her heart aching for the young woman who had been torn from love. And Thomas? Father Callum lowered his gaze. He was imprisoned, accused of witchcraft, of corrupting Lady Evelyn's soul. They say he cursed the Lord before he was hanged, vowing that Evelyn's spirit would haunt Windsor until their love was avenged. Ilara felt a chill. Then her spirit truly is bound to this place? Father Callum nodded. By love, and by hate. Only the truth can set her free. Chapter 4. Secrets in the Stone. Determined to free Lady Evelyn's spirit, Ilara returned to her chamber that night, clutching a piece of parchment she had discovered in the chapel archives. It was a confession, hastily scrawled by a servant who claimed to know where Evelyn's remains had been hidden. Beneath the stone marked with the hawk, Ilara murmured, reading the line aloud. Her heart raced as she realized the old chapel bore just such a carving in its foundation. That night, Ilara crept down to the chapel, a lantern in hand. Shadows twisted across the stone walls as she found the stone with the hawk engraving kneeling beside it. As she lifted the lantern, she whispered, "Lady Evelyn, show me the truth." A faint glow emanated from the stone, a soft spectral light that seemed to guide her. She placed her hands on the stone, feeling a warmth spread through her fingers. Suddenly a voice filled the chapel. "You have come for me." Ilara's heart skipped as Lady Evelyn's spirit appeared beside her, her eyes filled with a deep, haunting sorrow. "I was betrayed and left here to be forgotten," Evelyn whispered, her voice trembling. "My love, he suffered because of me, and now I am cursed to remain." Ilara looked up at the spirit, her heart breaking for the woman who had endured so much pain. "Tell me what I must do to free you." Evelyn's gaze softened. "My story must be told and the truth laid bare. Only then will my soul find peace." Chapter 5. Uncovering the Past. The next day, Ilara wrote down every word of Lady Evelyn's story, determined to share it with the world. She uncovered further documents hidden within the chapel, detailing Lord Hawthorne's plot and the tragic fate of the knight, Thomas. As she pieced together the fragments of Evelyn's life, she realized that the curse wasn't merely one of vengeance, but of love unfulfilled. Lady Evelyn's spirit lingered because her story had been buried, her love deemed unworthy, her memory confined to whispers. Chapter 6. The Last Goodbye. With Lady Evelyn's story completed, Ilara returned to the chapel at midnight. She held the parchment high, reciting the tale she had written, letting the words echo through the stone walls. "I set this story free, so all may know the truth of Lady Evelyn's love," she whispered. "May your spirit find peace, and your love remembered." A soft light filled the chapel, and Lady Evelyn's figure appeared before her, a faint smile gracing her lips. "You have freed me, Ilara," she said, her voice like a gentle breeze. "May you find the love and courage I could not. Farewell." With a final, wistful glance, Evelyn's spirit faded, leaving only the faintest scent of roses behind. As Ilara stood in the silent chapel, the weight of history settled around her. She knew there were other stories, other souls bound by secrets within Windsor's walls. The castle's mysteries were far from over. "Perhaps," she murmured, "I'll stay a little longer. There may be more truths waiting to be uncovered." With that, Ilara gathered her things, her mind already racing toward the next story that awaited in Windsor's darkened halls. The Secret of Bran Castle. Chapter 1. Arrival at Bran. The road to Bran Castle wound up a narrow mountainside bordered by thick forests that pressed in from all sides. Fog drifted across the landscape, clinging to the twisted tree trunks like ghostly fingers, and the air smelled faintly of pine and damp earth. Ilara peered out the carriage window, her heart thudding with anticipation. "It looks just like the legends," she murmured, clutching her leather-bound notebook as her gaze lingered on the silhouette of the castle looming in the distance. Her guide, a local man named Mihai, chuckled softly. Bran Castle is full of stories, Miss Ilara. They say it has secrets no one dares to speak of, and that it holds something dark. Ilara felt a shiver, but lifted her chin. She had come to Bran to uncover these secrets, to delve into the history of this eerie fortress perched on the edge of the Carpathian Mountains. "I've heard stories of curses and bloodlines," she said thoughtfully, "but no one seems to know the true story." Mihai's eyes flickered with something close to fear. The Draculesht family owned Bran long ago. The last descendant, she vanished without a trace. They say her spirit lingers, trapped by a curse she brought upon herself. A curse? Ilara leaned forward, intrigued. "A dark one, and old," Mihai whispered, almost as if afraid to say more. "But if you wish to learn more, you may speak with Father Andre at the chapel. He keeps records and warnings for those curious enough to look." The carriage rattled to a halt before the castle's towering gates. With a final nod, Mihai left her standing at the castle's entrance, and Ilara watched as the carriage disappeared into the fog. Bran Castle stood tall, its spires piercing the cloudy sky like fingers reaching for the heavens. Shadows clung to its ancient stones, and Ilara could almost feel the weight of history in the air, a quiet but oppressive presence. Taking a deep breath, she crossed the threshold and entered the castle. Chapter 2. The Empty Portraits. Inside, the castle was dimly lit, with narrow corridors leading in every direction. Candles flickered along the walls, casting long shadows that danced over portraits of stern-faced figures with pale skin and dark eyes. Ilara walked slowly, studying the faces on each frame. Many appeared regal, almost cold, as if they held secrets of their own. "Are you lost?" A voice, soft yet sharp, broke the silence. Ilara turned quickly to find an elderly woman watching her from the shadows, a worn shawl draped over her shoulders. Her eyes were sharp, taking in every detail of Ilara's appearance with unsettling intensity. "Not lost," Ilara replied, offering a polite smile. "Just intrigued. I'm here to study the history of Bran Castle, particularly the Draculesht family." The woman's eyes narrowed. "Intrigued, are you? Few come here out of mere curiosity." Ilara swallowed, maintaining her composure. "I was told the last descendant vanished, that she might be the source of certain legends." The woman's expression softened just slightly. "Ah, you speak of Lady Serena Draculesht, a beautiful soul, though troubled. Her story is not one easily told." "Please," Ilara said gently, "I would like to understand what happened to her." The woman seemed to hesitate, but then she gestured for Ilara to follow. "I am Maria, the keeper of this castle," she said as they walked deeper into the corridors. "Lady Serena was the last of her line, and she bore the weight of a curse as old as this castle itself." Ilara felt a thrill of excitement. What kind of curse? Maria stopped before a large portrait covered in dust. She reached up, brushing the grime away to reveal the face of a woman with dark hair, pale skin, and hauntingly sad eyes. "Serena," Maria murmured, "she was beloved by her people, but betrayed by those she trusted most." Ilara leaned in closer, captivated by the sorrow etched into the woman's painted eyes. "What happened to her?" Maria's voice was barely a whisper. "She made a pact one that bound her to the castle forever. Chapter 3. The Pact. That evening, Elara sat in her small chamber, her mind racing with Maria's words. A pact binding Serena to the castle. She had read about curses passed down through generations, but what sort of agreement could bind a soul so completely? Determined to learn more, she visited the chapel the next morning, seeking out Father Andre, as Mihai had suggested. Father Andre was a frail, elderly man with gentle eyes and hands that shook as he held a worn leather book. "You wish to know of Serena Draculesti?" he asked, his voice tinged with pity. "Many have sought her story, but few find peace in it." Elara nodded, unflinching. "Please, tell me everything." The priest sighed, opening the book to a faded page. Lady Serena was desperate to protect her people. In those days, Bran was threatened by rival lords, each one more ruthless than the last. She prayed for strength, for protection. And then he appeared. Elara frowned. "Who?" "An emissary of darkness," Father Andre whispered, crossing himself. "A figure clad in shadows who offered her a pact, eternal strength in exchange for her freedom." "Desperate," Serena agreed. Elara shivered, feeling a chill run through her. And what happened after? "Her power grew," Father Andre continued, "but it came with a price. Her soul became tethered to the castle, her essence entwined with its stones. She could never leave, never rest. Even in death, she would be bound here." "Then, she's still here?" Elara asked, her voice hushed. Father Andre's eyes glistened with sorrow. "Her spirit lingers, tormented by the pact she made. She appears to those who seek her story, hoping, perhaps, that someone might free her." Chapter 4. Midnight Encounter. That night, Elara felt an unexplainable pull toward the castle's tower, where the portrait of Lady Serena hung. She crept through the darkened corridors, her lantern casting long shadows as she climbed the narrow stairs. As she reached the top, a cold gust extinguished her lantern, plunging her into darkness. She stilled, listening to the silence that seemed to throb with a strange energy. "Why have you come?" The voice was soft, yet filled with a profound sorrow. Elara's heart pounded as she turned to see a faint figure standing by the window, a woman in a dark gown, her face pale and eyes hollow, filled with centuries of grief. "Lady Serena?" Elara whispered, her voice barely audible. The spirit inclined her head, her gaze piercing. "You seek my story, but I have nothing left to offer." "I want to help you," Elara said, her voice steady despite her fear. "Tell me what I must do." Serena's gaze softened. "If you wish to free me, you must break the pact that binds me, a vow made in blood, sealed with darkness. It can only be undone by one willing to take my place." Elara's breath caught. "Take your place?" Serena nodded. "To sever the chains of this curse, a soul must be offered in exchange. Only then will I find peace." Elara's mind raced, her heart torn. She had come seeking knowledge, not intending to make a sacrifice. "But if you do not," Serena continued, her voice tinged with desperation, "I shall remain here, bound for eternity." Elara looked into the spirit's eyes, feeling the weight of her sorrow, the longing for freedom. She hesitated, a sense of dread settling over her. But before she could speak, Serena faded into the shadows, leaving her alone in the cold, empty tower. Chapter 5. The Choice. The following day, Ilara roamed the castle, her heart heavy. Could she truly offer her soul to free Serena? The sacrifice was unfathomable, yet the thought of leaving Serena bound to her prison was unbearable. As she wandered, she found herself in the library, where a book lay open on an ancient wooden table. The words on the page seemed to leap out at her. A soul bound in darkness may be freed by the pure of heart, though the price be their own. Ilara took a shuddering breath. She knew then what she had to do. Chapter 6. The Final Farewell. That night, Ilara returned to the tower, her resolve steeled. Serena appeared once more, her form flickering like a candle flame in the wind. "I've come to make the exchange," Ilara said, her voice unwavering. Serena's eyes widened, a flicker of hope breaking through her sorrow. "You would do this for me?" Ilara nodded, her heart steady. "Your suffering has lasted centuries. If my life can end that pain, then I am willing." Serena's eyes filled with gratitude as she stepped forward, reaching out to touch Ilara's hand. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice breaking. A rush of cold swept over Ilara as Serena's form faded into her, the two spirits intertwining. Ilara felt a deep warmth, a sense of peace washing over her as Serena's presence lifted, freed at last. The curse was broken. The Phantom Knights of Dover. Chapter 1. Arrival at Dover. The white cliffs of Dover loomed tall and ghostly as Ilara's carriage climbed the winding path toward the castle. Mist clung to the ancient stone walls, swirling around the battlements like the whispers of lost souls. As she stepped down from the carriage, a sense of foreboding washed over her, tugging at her heart and urging her to turn back. But Ilara was undeterred. She had come to uncover the mysteries of Dover Castle, specifically the tale of the Phantom Knights who reportedly haunted these grounds since the days of King John. Her guide, a stoic figure named Sir Alaric, met her with a solemn bow, his voice as cold as the sea wind. "Lady Ilara, you should be aware, the Phantom Knights are no myth. Many say they guard a treasure hidden deep within the castle's walls, but none who've sought it have returned unchanged." Intrigued, Ilara followed Sir Alaric into the castle, the shadows gathering like silent sentries along their path. Chapter 2. The Secret of the Knights. That evening, Ilara sat with Sir Alaric in a small chamber overlooking the churning sea. The room was dimly lit, and her guide's voice dropped to a whisper as he recounted the legend of the Phantom Knights. They were a band of loyal warriors, betrayed and executed under King John's command for refusing to reveal the location of a vast treasure. It was said they pledged their souls to Dover Castle to ensure the treasure remained hidden from those who would misuse it. Ilara shivered at the notion of knights bound to their oath even in death. What happened to the treasure? Some say it's locked away in the lower chambers, guarded by their vengeful spirits. Every night they march through the halls, retracing their final steps, as if awaiting justice that never came. Chapter 3. The Midnight March. Unable to contain her curiosity, Elara decided to see for herself. That night, she crept from her chamber, candle in hand, and made her way down the spiraling staircase. The silence was thick, broken only by the distant sound of waves crashing against the cliffs. As she reached the lower corridor, she heard it, a faint clinking, like the sound of armor. Heart pounding, she pressed herself against the wall as a group of shadowy figures appeared, their forms shrouded in mist. They moved in silence, spectral knights marching with a purpose she couldn't fathom. Elara held her breath, watching as they disappeared into the depths of the castle. The weight of their presence lingered long after they were gone, and she knew she had to follow them further. Chapter 4. The Hall of Betrayal. The next day, Elara sought out the castle's historian, an elderly man named Father Aldrich, who led her to the castle's crypt. "This is where their tale ended," he said gravely, gesturing to a weathered plaque on the wall. It bore the names of the knights, etched in faded letters. "Elara, their spirits seek peace," Father Aldrich murmured. "If you're to release them, you must uncover the true reason behind their betrayal." Elara's mind raced as she traced the names with her fingertips, her heart swelling with sorrow for these lost souls. She knew she had to dig deeper to find out why these men were so cruelly condemned. Chapter 5. The Betrayer's Confession. Her search led her to a hidden chamber in the castle archives, where she discovered a letter written by one of King John's advisors. It spoke of a plot to usurp the king, a treasure hidden away not for greed, but for loyalty to a greater cause. The knights were guardians, but they'd been branded as traitors for their silence. Armed with this truth, Elara returned to the crypt that night, intent on releasing the knights from their endless march. Chapter 6. The Last Stand. As midnight struck, Elara stood before the crypt's entrance, calling to the spirits within. One by one, the phantom knights appeared, their faces etched with an eternity of sorrow and determination. She recited the words she'd found, laying bare the truth of their loyalty. The knights listened, and as the final word left her lips, a sense of peace settled over the crypt. Their spectral forms began to fade, their oath fulfilled at last. With the knights freed, Elara felt a surge of triumph, but she knew more mysteries awaited. Dover had many secrets, and she was determined to uncover them all. The Hidden Chamber of Warwick Castle. Chapter 1. Arrival at Warwick. Elara's carriage arrived at Warwick Castle as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the ancient stone walls in a fiery glow. The towering castle loomed against the evening sky, exuding an air of grandeur and mystery. As she stepped down, Elara noticed the chill that hung in the air despite the warm evening. Rumors of a hidden chamber had drawn her here, tales of an elusive room that vanished from maps and memories alike, yet was said to hold ancient artifacts and secrets guarded for centuries. Awaiting her was Lady Beatrice, a stern, middle-aged woman whose family had long held the role of stewards to the castle. "Warwick keeps many secrets," she said by way of greeting, her tone hinting at reluctance. "The hidden chamber is not a story to be pursued lightly, Miss Elara. Many have sought it, and all have returned, changed." Unshaken, Elara followed Lady Beatrice into the castle's vast halls, eager to uncover the mystery for herself. Chapter 2. The Legend of the Chamber. Later that evening, Lady Beatrice recounted the tale of the hidden chamber as they sat by a crackling fire. Centuries ago, a sorcerer named Edric was granted asylum at Warwick by the Earl himself. In gratitude, he promised the Earl his protection, a spell of sorts cast upon an artifact that he concealed in a secret chamber.
Ilara leaned forward, entranced. What artifact? Beatrice's face darkened. A relic from the Crusades, said to be imbued with protective magic. Only those of pure heart can even glimpse the chamber, for it moves with the castle as if alive. Those who enter unworthy are never seen again.
A thrill of excitement raced down Ilara's spine, tempered by a hint of dread. This chamber was no ordinary mystery. It was steeped in legends of magic and curses. The thought only fueled her curiosity. Chapter 3. The Enigmatic Map. Determined to begin her search, Ilara explored the castle library the next morning. Dust motes floated in the air as she scanned ancient texts, hoping to find any hint of the chamber's location. Hours passed before she stumbled upon a worn leather-bound tome, its pages brittle with age. Inside was a partial map of the castle, but several corridors led to dead ends, a labyrinth meant to confound intruders. But one peculiar marking caught her eye, a small spiral near the northern wing. The notation beside it was faint, as if purposely obscured. She traced her finger over the spiral, wondering if it might be a clue. Just as she did, the room seemed to dim, a whisper drifting through the silence. "To find the hidden, you must look beyond." The cryptic words lingered in the air, spurring Ilara onward. She knew she was on the right path, though something in the castle seemed to watch her every move. Chapter 4. A Night of Shadows. That night, Ilara found herself drawn to the northern wing. She wandered through the dimly lit corridors, each step echoing against the stone walls. As she reached the place marked on the map, she paused, feeling an inexplicable chill seep into her bones. Suddenly a soft creaking filled the air, and she turned to see a faint outline of a door where no door had been before. Her heart pounded as she approached, her hand trembling as she reached out. The door swung open at her touch, revealing a narrow stairway descending into darkness. Ilara took a steadying breath and stepped forward, candle in hand. The air grew colder with each step, carrying an ancient scent of earth and stone. She could almost feel the weight of the centuries pressing down upon her, as if the chamber itself resisted her approach. Chapter 5. The Chamber of Secrets. At the bottom of the staircase, Ilara found herself in a small room lit by a faint, otherworldly glow. Shelves lined the walls, cluttered with artifacts cloaked in dust and mystery. In the center stood a pedestal, upon which rested an intricately carved box. She approached the box, her fingers tingling as she reached out to touch it. A strange warmth pulsed beneath her hand, as if the box were alive. She lifted the lid, revealing a golden amulet, its surface etched with symbols that seemed to shift and shimmer in the dim light. "Ilara." She froze, recognizing the voice. It was Edric's, a mere whisper, but filled with urgency. "You have found the chamber, but beware, only one who seeks with a true heart may wield its secrets." Determined, she lifted the amulet, feeling its power flow through her. But just as she did, the air grew dense, and shadows began to coalesce around her, the room filling with an unnatural chill. Chapter 6. A Vision of the Past. As Ilara clutched the amulet, her surroundings blurred, and she was pulled into a vision. She stood in the castle, but it was as it had been centuries ago. Edric appeared before her, a tall, gaunt figure cloaked in robes, his eyes filled with sorrow. "You have crossed a boundary that cannot be undone," he said solemnly. "This chamber holds power meant to protect but also to imprison. Only by honoring the truth of its origin may you leave unscathed." Ilara felt his words resonate deeply, as if they were carved into her very soul. "What must I do?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Break the curse," he replied, his form fading. "Only then shall you be free." Chapter 7. The Price of Freedom. When the vision ended, Ilara found herself alone once more, her mind racing. She realized that Edric's curse could only be broken by revealing the chamber's existence to the castle's lineage, bringing the truth to light. With the amulet in hand, she returned to Lady Beatrice, recounting her experience with unwavering conviction. Beatrice listened, her expression shifting from disbelief to wonder as she held the amulet in her hands. This is the proof my family has guarded," Beatrice murmured, her voice thick with emotion. "Thank you, Ilara. By revealing this truth, you have lifted a burden that has weighed on my family for generations." Chapter 8. The Last Whisper. As the dawn broke over Warwick Castle, Ilara felt a sense of peace settle over her. She returned to the hidden chamber once more, finding it empty, yet filled with a quiet, comforting presence. The whisper that had first led her here returned, softer now, a mere breath in the stillness. "Thank you." With a final glance, Ilara left the chamber, its door fading back into the stone wall, concealed once more, but at peace. The Lost Treasure of Château, Gaillard. Chapter 1. The Journey to Château Gaillard. As the carriage wound its way through the rugged terrain of Normandy, Ilara gazed out the window at the towering silhouette of Château Gaillard against the mist-laden sky. The fortress perched on a high cliff, its ancient walls scarred from centuries of conflict, yet exuding a mysterious allure. Legends spoke of a hidden treasure once fiercely guarded by Richard the Lionheart himself, a prize that had drawn countless treasure hunters, each leaving empty-handed or not at all. A local guide named Luke met her at the base of the castle. "Many have come seeking the treasure," he murmured, eyeing her with a mixture of skepticism and respect. "Few leave without regrets. Château Gaillard has a way of keeping its secrets." Undeterred, Ilara tightened her cloak against the chill. "I've come to uncover the truth, Luke. Perhaps this treasure was never gold or jewels, but something far greater." Luke offered a wry smile. "Then may the spirits of the castle favor you, for you may indeed need it." Chapter 2. The Legend of the Lionheart's Treasure. That evening, as a fierce wind howled through the castle's corridors, Luke recounted the legend of Richard the Lionheart's hidden treasure. "They say the king hid something invaluable within these walls, an artifact brought back from the Crusades. Some believe it is the famed Cup of Wisdom, a relic rumored to grant insight and strength to those worthy of its gifts."
Ilara's curiosity burned. Why did Richard hide it here?
"Château Gaillard was his masterpiece, his fortress of pride," Luke replied. "To Richard, this castle was impenetrable, its walls a testament to his legacy. But as you'll see, pride can be a dangerous thing. Many say that this very pride binds his spirit to the castle, ensuring the treasure never falls into unworthy hands. Ilara felt a thrill as she considered the mystery before her. But as she glanced around the dim room, shadows seemed to deepen, as if silently warning her of the perils that lay ahead. Chapter 3. The First Clue. Determined to begin her search, Ilara rose at dawn and wandered through the castle's sprawling courtyards and winding staircases. She examined the stone walls, each one seemingly identical, but there was something peculiar near the chapel. An intricate carving of a lion with a single eye hidden in shadow. Beneath it was a faint inscription in Latin. "Only the one who seeks beyond the stone shall find what lies within," Ilara murmured, her fingers tracing the carved letters. As she pressed her hand against the stone, a soft click echoed through the silence. A small opening appeared, revealing a narrow corridor concealed within the wall. Heart-pounding, she stepped inside, her lantern casting flickering light on the damp walls as she descended. Chapter 4. The Hall of Echoes. The corridor led her to an underground chamber, its walls lined with empty alcoves. As she entered, a strange sensation washed over her. The air was thick with whispers, as if the past itself lingered here, waiting to be uncovered. Ilara. She froze, recognizing the voice from countless history books, Richard the Lionheart himself. His tone was solemn, yet commanding, a voice tempered by battle and hardship. Whoever seeks the truth must leave behind the lure of gold and look instead to the heart. Ilara's pulse quickened. Was this a test? She realized then that this journey was not merely about finding a treasure, but understanding the essence of Richard's legacy. Taking a steadying breath, she continued down the corridor, her senses sharpened, feeling the weight of history around her. Chapter 5. The Guardian's Riddle. At the end of the corridor, she found herself in a chamber dominated by a grand statue of a knight bearing a shield with cryptic symbols. An inscription beneath read, "The truth shall be revealed to those who answer the question of kings." Ilara pondered the words, aware that Richard had been a complex leader, driven by both honor and ambition. She whispered, "What was his greatest victory?" The statue's eyes glowed faintly and a voice emerged, deep and ancient. "The victory of wisdom over pride," it intoned, and the wall behind the statue shifted, revealing a hidden passage. With renewed determination, Ilara entered, feeling as if she were crossing a threshold into another world. Each step seemed to transport her deeper into the past, as if the castle itself guarded memories that only the worthy could access. Chapter 6. The Chamber of Secrets. At the end of the passage, Ilara reached an ornate chamber filled with relics, a sword, a chalice, and a small worn chest, each artifact steeped in mystery. But at the center of the room stood a pedestal, upon which lay a single scroll, its parchment yellowed with age. With reverence, Ilara unrolled the scroll, her eyes scanning the words. They told the story of Richard's journey, his battles, and his final realization that true power lay not in conquest, but in wisdom and self-mastery. The treasure, she realized, was this legacy, a reminder that strength could only prevail when tempered by understanding. As she lifted the scroll, she felt a strange warmth fill her, as if Richard's spirit had bestowed upon her the insight he had once sought in life. Chapter 7. The Legacy Unveiled. With the scroll in hand, Ilara retraced her steps through the castle's winding halls, feeling as if she were walking in Richard's footsteps. She sensed now that the real treasure lay not in any artifact, but in the message Richard had left behind, a truth he wished to pass on to future generations. Returning to Luke, she shared what she had found, and his eyes widened as he listened. So the treasure was wisdom, hidden in plain sight, he murmured, shaking his head in wonder. It's no wonder no one ever found it. They were all looking for gold. Ilara smiled, feeling a sense of fulfillment unlike any other. Richard left as a reminder that true power lies within. That is his legacy. Chapter 8. The Final Revelation. Before leaving, Ilara visited the castle's highest tower, gazing out over the landscape Richard had once cherished. As the sun dipped below the horizon, a final whisper reached her ears, a voice filled with gratitude and peace. Thank you, Ilara. My story is now yours to share. A soft, golden light filled the tower, illuminating the stones that had borne witness to centuries of history. Ilara felt the presence fade, leaving her with a sense of peace, as if Richard's spirit had finally been set free.